Happy Thursday, everybody. It's finally sunny here in Northwest Arkansas. You know what that means? Another Hog Roundup with Ty Richardson. That's ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson. As always, I'm Evan Kamiko. We thank you all for tuning in and week out and listening to us rant and talk about whatever we want to talk about. Usually it's fun stuff, but hey, we're talking football. Arkansas takes on Mississippi State. The Hogs looking to bounce back after that loss to Auburn. Let's finish up with that Auburn game, right? 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter, 3 by Taylon Green. Omega Blake had one. It seemed like the rails just fell off for this Arkansas team. When you put everything in a perspective of that game, what do you take away that could be positive?
Well, I think you start with the pick six. And how about Kenai Walker getting the first turnover for Arkansas since the Memphis game? Quincy Rhodes got a couple sacks. So defensively, to only give up 1 offensive touchdown to Auburn after your offense turned the ball over 4 times, that's a positive. You start there. Not a lot of positives for special teams and offense, so there's really nowhere else to go, Ev.
Yeah, you got to go up, right? Like from there, it cannot get worse. I think Hog fans sit there and they go, man, the turnover against Ole Miss. Then you had the fourth quarter woes, the turnover against Memphis.
Yep.
It's the same exact story every week. And I read the comments and people are like, can you guys be positive? Like, can we say some positivity? I think it's hard to be positive about a team when mistakes are happening every single week. And it's the same mistake, right? Fumbles and turnovers. Penalties keep adding up. It's the same things over and over again. So it's hard to necessarily want to be positive when you're lost, 5-6 games in a row? Yeah. You haven't won since September. You haven't beaten an FBS opponent yet this season. It's just hard to go that way when everything's going wrong. And this team has every opportunity to win all these games, it feels like.
Yeah, the Ole Miss and Tennessee and Texas A&M games to lose by a combined 10 points just hurts. I mean, it's awful. I say 10 points. It was 12, I guess, but those hurt. And then even to lose by Auburn after having 4 turnovers, you still only lost by 9. Defense gave you a chance to game. So it's compounded, as we've talked about. It's not just this year. You think about the losses since 2012 that have piled up between a bunch of head coaches. Arkansas fans are just hoping something goes their way this weekend against the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Let's look at this Bulldog team. Okay. Look, I think they slept on how good they are. They've been in pretty much every matchup. Almost beat Texas at home last weekend.
Yes.
Lost in overtime. What is Arkansas going to have to do if they want to have success against the Bulldogs?
We can't turn the ball over, as you mentioned. Mississippi State, like Auburn this last week, comes in without an SEC win. Mississippi State, like Auburn, has lost some really tight games, as you mentioned, being up 17 in the fourth quarter against Texas and then blowing it. There's a reason Arkansas is favored in this game. Not only are they at home, but they're better on paper. They are better. They're better offensively. They don't have the amount of turnovers forced that Mississippi State has, but Auburn had a really good defense. State's defense is not that good. They've just forced turnovers and been opportunistic. So if you're the Razorbacks, if you don't do that, you've got a more potent offense than they do. I expect Taylon Green to bounce back after one of his worst performances in a Razorback uniform, and so I tend to think that Arkansas is going to be the high side this weekend.
When you look at Taylon, right, there were talks after the game. Bobby said, well, he wasn't necessarily 100%. It's why maybe he didn't run as much. Would you like to see them get back to the ground game early on, and not just with Taylon Green, but also with Mike Washington, Braylon Russell? The Hogs had one of their worst rushing games last week after you're going for 230 against Texas A&M the week before. So the polarity between the 2 weeks doesn't necessarily make sense, where you can run the ball against a college football playoff team, let's call them what they are, and you can against, a good Auburn defense, but not to the quality that A&M was.
Well, you think about Bobby Petrino's first 2 games as head coach running the football. Mike Washington individually almost had 300 yards. Mm-hmm. Combined as a team, they nearly had 500 yards in those 2 games. And then to put up a performance rushing the football, and he pointed, not credited, he pointed to the offensive line. He said this was really the first time they've gotten out-physicaled outside of the Notre Dame game all season. And so it's a shot to the offensive line. It's a shot to Mike Washington, Braylon Russell, Taylon Green, and the rest of that offense, because the reason they've been really successful at times passing the ball is because there is that running thread that so many defensive coordinators and linebackers and safeties are worried about. So if you can get that going early, that opens up the rest of their offense, and Taylon has a much better productive day.
What's interesting to me is if Taylon's productive, he's spreading the ball out a lot. And what it feels like the last couple of weeks is he's not doing that. It's been really Raylan Sharp, Omega Blake, and Rohan Jones who feel like the primary 3 pass catchers. If you double one of them, it's pretty easy for defenses to figure it out, right? So if they're doubling Blake, no one else is stepping up. What wide receiver maybe has to step up? Do you need to see more from C.J. Brown, more reps from Courtney Crutchfield on the end to help out Taylon?
I think C.J. Brown is a guy that's shown you he can make plays this season. Sharp has picked it up a little bit too. But how about Rohan Jones? I mean, for him to be in that tight end room this year, you lost Andreas Poshka for the year. Him and Jaden Blatt have both been really good. That kid is so fast. He looks like a wide receiver at times when he's coming out of the H-back position. And Bobby Petrino's done a really good job in lining him up in different situations. And goes over 100 yards last week. I would try and get him the ball even more. Petrino got asked about that. You might have even asked him about that after the game. Maybe it's Trey. But that is something I think a lot of people have been pleasantly surprised by, is how good he graded out. I think is the highest Pro Football Focus tight end of anyone this year. So Rohan Jones has been magnificent for this football team.
The NFL draft stock continues to rise for Rohan Jones for sure. But let's go to the defensive side of it. Actually, you know what? We'll pivot. We'll stay on offense because I want to talk about the offensive line. Okay. Last night, availability report came out. You've got two O-linemen, Caden Kittler and Marion Harris. You're already rolling your head, your eyes. They're both questionable. How big of a loss is it if you can't get those two guys to play?
Let's start with center. Kittler's been incredible this season. I don't know if he's in the Remington Awards watch list for the best center in college football.
Should be.
That offensive line has been, outside of last game and the Notre Dame game, has been really good. I think for that you start there and then Amarian Harris. And listen, right tackle, left tackle, you don't want any of your tackles because if they're starting, the guy behind them is lesser. And I know there was a battle between him and Shaq McCroy in the offseason, and I believe Shaq has played in 6 of the 8 games thus far. But you're still taking a step back regardless if you see that. And it's Cash Courtney, I believe, is the backup center. So there are a lot of questions. We'll get another one tonight, then we'll get the one, Friday, and then Saturday morning, the official report. Yeah. It could get hairy if you lose one or two of those guys for Mississippi State, even though you're not going up against a premier SEC defense.
That report's going to come out 90 minutes before kickoff. So for everybody who's counting down the minutes to find out who's going to play or who's going to not, you'll know 90 minutes beforehand. But the good news for the Razorbacks, it seems like Cam Ball is going to be back this week. Bobby kind of mentioned it, a freak injury. He was not listed on the injury report, so it looks like he'll be back. David Oki out again, which could hurt. For you, seeing that defense getting Cam Ball back, how important is it going to be?
You got Danny Sahili back a little bit, and Cam is really the fifth year, the guy that was getting SEC accolades preseason. I know he hasn't had the season, nor anyone on that defense really has had the season they've wanted. But it's a big get for Arkansas because you need someone to plug that middle. If you watch that Auburn game, they were able to get a good chunk of whatever they want running the football. Like I am surprised Hugh Freeze called a pass play in that game, to be perfectly honest. But Cam's a big addition, and hopefully he can impact the game on Saturday.
And the last pass play that he did call was an interception from Jackson Arnold. Well, he called some in the second half, but in the first half, Jackson Arnold did that. So we look ahead, Mississippi State. Look, they can score on offense. They're really good. For Arkansas to win this game, X has to happen.
I think Talon has to get back to the Talon we saw in the first 3 SEC games. I mean, you go to Oxford and put up a performance like he did, I think 4 total touchdowns. Then you go to Knoxville. I know he had the fumbles, but Taylor Green did enough for them to win that football game. And then follow it up with Texas A&M. You hang 42 on a team that allowed less to 3 other SEC opponents. So I think if Taylor plays like he has against other SEC teams, with the exception of Auburn, Arkansas is going to find a way to win this football game.
Every time I want to say I think Arkansas is going to win, they don't. So I'm just going to refrain. I'm not going to give any predictions. But before we let you go, before we go to a quick break and head out to Razorback Field, let's talk about something interesting. LSU fires Brian Kelly. I know the coaching search is, the number one priority of everybody right now. How is LSU having an opening going to impact the Arkansas job?
Well, it's one extra obstacle you have to go up against, Evan. LSU's a better job than Arkansas in football, baseball, not basketball, luckily. It just is, and Arkansas fans know that. I think Hunter Yurchek and a lot of other coaches know that as well. I think the domino effect is also in play here, because if Kiffin decides to jump ship, then you think about the Ole Miss job coming open, which is still, unfortunately, at least in its current state in 2025, a better job than Arkansas. There's so many variables. There's so many different tentacles to this whole equation. Yeah. And then there's coaches that could potentially want to end up in Fayetteville, that something in their season changes the trajectory of everything. So it's another issue. And who's to say that another job in the SEC, like in Columbia, South Carolina, in Lexington, Kentucky, or other places that could pop open by the end of this year.
And we're forgetting, too, there's jobs in the Big Ten that are probably going to open up. You've got Wisconsin, who Luke Fickell, they've supported him, but when you get, donutted by Iowa and Ohio State, kind of hard to justify this. So that might open up. Then you've got jobs on the West Coast that might open up. UCLA might even be a better job right now with the fact that they can bring Nico Iamaleava over from Tennessee, albeit that's a sticky situation. We're not going to get into that. But when you kind of look forward and you look ahead at what's coming up for this football team and the coaching search right now, why should Hog fans at home be excited for the next couple of weeks?
You play 3 rivals in your last 4 games. You get a chance to play a long-time SEC West foe this weekend at home before you have your bye and then travel. I think whenever you play a big-time opponent, regardless of how their season is going, when you think about the history between Arkansas and LSU, the history between the Razorbacks and the Longhorns, and whether people want to admit it or not, the new rivalry with Missouri, those are reasons to get excited. Now, I'm not saying you have to watch the games. You're obviously can do whatever you want. But I think that while it's a brutal stretch, it's not as difficult as you maybe thought it would be with the way Texas and LSU's offensive plays and the way that Bro Parilla is going to be out for Missouri when you do get them in the final game at Razorback Stadium this fall.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but when you put it in perspective, right? There's a chance this team could finish 4-0. Crazier things can happen, but Mississippi State isn't supposed to be as good. You mentioned Texas. If you can beat Mississippi State, the transitive property, you think you can beat Texas because that game went to the wire, and then you face LSU with an interim head coach, and then you finish up I flipped LSU in Texas. It's LSU, then Texas. And then, like you said, you're going to face a Missouri team with their 3rd or 4th string quarterback. So you're saying there's a chance, Ty?
I'm not. I don't clip this out. I think they can win one of the rivalry games. Yeah. I think if you win this weekend against the Bulldogs, you give yourself some momentum heading into the bye week, which is not what you did when you played Notre Dame, and you give these guys a reason to not let go of the rope. If you lose this weekend, you can clip this out. If you lose this weekend, you're not winning the game the rest of the way.
It's as simple as it gets.
Yeah,
as simple as it gets.
I don't see a scenario where they could fall to the Bulldogs and win over either the Tigers, the Longhorns, or the other Tigers.
Yeah. So. Couldn't agree more on that one. This is a must-win for positivity for this guy behind us, Bobby Petrino, and the rest of his team. Well, we've hit our first break here on Hog Roundup. When we come back, we're heading out to Razorback Field. All-SEC first-teamer Kennedy Ball joins the show. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Excited to be joined by Kennedy Ball. Kennedy Jr. this season has pretty much been everything you probably wanted it to be, but there's been trials and tribulations through the year. It hasn't necessarily been super easy. When you look back at where this team was back a couple months ago to now, what are you most proud of?
I mean, obviously we've been through, like you said, a heck of a season. We had a lot of just unexpected injuries for players that, were expected to play a big role this year, and so that was definitely something, especially in the beginning of the season, that we kind of struggled with, and as the season went on, we kind of learned how to deal with that and learn how to grow from that. So I think that's been something really big that the team has overcame. And then obviously we've had a super tough schedule. We played Duke and Notre Dame and Iowa early on in the season, and so those were definitely big, challenging tests for us. And I think what I'm most proud of this team this year is just how resilient we've been and just how we've never given up. We've always stayed hungry, even in the moments where it was tough.
I was going to ask about that. You had such a tough schedule at the beginning. Coach Hale said to the media, he's like, okay, this team, they're going to learn from this, and we're going to win the SEC down the line. You go on and you get that accomplished. What did that feel like when you guys are on the field? The time is ticking, it's going down to 0, and you realize that you're SEC champs for the 5th time in 7 years.
I mean, for me, I was kind of at midfield looking over at the coaches, huddling and, saying like, oh my gosh, we did it. But yeah, it's a really awesome feeling. Just, getting an award like that and, seeing all of our hard work go into something that means a lot to the coaches and to, the players. But yeah, that was awesome.
And then, postseason awards come out. 5 of you are all SEC, your first team on all SEC. What does that mean, again, because of everything you guys have gone through, to see the recognition you're getting? Coach Hill, also SEC Coach of the Year. What does that all mean when you kind of take that in?
Yeah, I mean, that's super awesome. Again, we've just been resilient. We've been working really hard this season, and yes, again, it is good to kind of see those awards come out of that. But at the same time, for me, I'm more so just focused on the team and focused on today's practice, the next day, SEC tournament. And so yeah, I do think it's a really awesome accolade, but I think we need to focus going forward just on winning SEC tournament and seeing where that gets us seated in the NCAA tournament.
It's a really classic Colby Hale answer right there. He's taught a lot of you guys well of just like hey, yeah, all the awards, everything is cool, but at the end of the day, what matters is, winning the SEC tournament, winning the regular season, and then getting into the postseason. Let's talk about the SEC tournament. That's coming up. You guys are the 1 seed, worked hard, earned that. It'll be in Pensacola next week, I should say.
Yeah.
And now at this point, you've had a couple under your belt. Hasn't necessarily gone your way in the semis and the finals.
Right.
What can you learn from the last couple of SEC tournaments that will change this time around when you get to Pensacola?
For sure. I think, Colby talks about this a lot, but he says as the season goes on, he kind of gets less involved as a coach on the field, if that makes sense. So it's more so us, figuring out problems and, solving, finding solutions on the field. And so I think especially at SEC tournament, I think that's kind of the point in the season where we are just collaborating and solving the problems on the field as players. So I think in years past, we've just we had a loss against Texas a year before, and then 2 years ago we lost to Georgia in the finals. And so I mean, for me personally, I think it really is just the details that get you a win or a loss in those types of games. Especially considering it's it's a really tough point in the season. Everyone's legs are heavy. There's just, it's a big game. There's a lot on the line. So I think, one of the biggest things I've learned, especially at the tournament, is just taking care of the details. And yeah, I feel like the details are definitely what leads to the team's success in the tournament.
What's the excitement for you guys to get to go on the road and test and get essentially ready to come back here? And obviously you're probably going to host first or second round of the NCAA tournament. What's the excitement level in the locker room? I
mean, for me personally, I love going to the beach. It's just really awesome to stay with your team and just bond at the beach. So that's definitely where I'm at. And I think especially for the new freshmen, they're excited, and the upperclassmen, the seniors, they're just super excited to have their last go at it at the beach.
Last question I have for you before we let you go, before we go to a quick break. What over the next couple of weeks are you looking forward to the most?
Man, like I said, I love the beach, love Pensacola. It's always a fun time. And I do think just tournament time it's just such a fun moment to be in. I always have really good memories of just tournaments, SEC tournament, NCAA tournament. And so yeah, I think the excitement for me would just be going into the SEC tournament and hopefully getting a different outcome this year, one that we've never done for the program. So I think just having the opportunity and the idea that we could win the SEC tournament is super exciting to me. And then also, just taking it a step further in the NCAA as well. See if we can get to a Final Four and then national championship. So yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I think this place in a couple of weeks is going to be rocking if you come back with an SEC tournament title. A big thanks to you, Kennedy, for joining us. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. A big thanks again to Kennedy Ball for joining the show back here in our studios, wrapping things up on this Thursday afternoon. That's Ty Richardson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Ty, we got to talk some basketball.
Yep.
It was everything and more John Calipari could have won Monday night when the Hogs took down Memphis 99-75. You were down 15. You got punched in the face. They came back. What impressed you the most?
I think it's Malik Thomas, true freshman, that really got the team rolling. His release is so quick, Ev. It's unbelievable. It was Malik Ewan's turn in the front court. Nick Pringle, I think, had a good game against your first opponent in Cincinnati, and then you saw a little more of the 5 assists and everything else. But for Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, who I think are combined for 35 in game 1 and then 40 in game 2, that's encouraging to see because you know what you have in Carter Knox. I think you know what you have. Billy Richmond's a better shooter this year. There's a lot to like about this basketball team from top to bottom when you think about the depth in that lineup.
And I think the national perception of this team is starting to change as well. You've got more national media outlets going, hey, did we did we screw Arkansas? Yeah. Did we rank them too short? Should they be higher? I think they should be higher if they've proved anything. But again, you can look at, exhibitions from the past couple of years. Last year, you go and you beat Kansas, you lose to TCU. 2023, they beat the number one team in the country in Purdue, and we all know how that ended with Eric Musselman gone and this guy behind us in charge. So you never know what's going to happen in these exhibitions, but there's positives to take away. And like you said, the two freshmen were great. DJ Wagner started to get going towards the end. Billy is always going to be the energy guy, Pringle and all of that. But when we look at now the regular season comes up, yeah, you face a weak opponent on Monday in Southern, but then it's Michigan State. Then you're going to Breslin Center. It's going to be, like you said, a good wake-up call quickly on for this team to find out who they are, and it feels like they already got it, which is good.
Yeah, and you get to go up against a Hall of Fame coach. You got Cal and Izzo getting to take on one another, which I know they played in the tournament before. This is going to be fun a week from Saturday. But to have this in Bud Walton Arena Monday night to kind of set you up into the tone, there's some really good games ahead for the Razorbacks in non-conference, and it's also nice to have the SEC ACC Challenge in Bud Walton Arena when Louisville will come to town. You'll get to learn a lot about this basketball team in non-conference play just based on the caliber of opponents they'll go up against.
Absolutely. When you look around the SEC and see some of the results, right? Like, you've had Tennessee and Duke playing each other, some of these other really fun exhibition games. Again, Arkansas feels like they're going to be right there at the top. How does this team play a complete game? Like, how do they go from start to finish to play a complete game to be at their best?
Well, I think you saw what this team is capable of in that second half against Memphis, where I believe the Tigers shot like low 20%, like low 20s, and the Razorbacks shot above 50. When they get into you because of the length, because of Billy at 6'6", Carter at 6'6", Trevin at 6'10", Malik Ewan it's about 6'10", Nick Pringle at 6'9", and then the guards like DJ's a veteran now as a junior, Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas. I think Malik's like 6'5". You just got so much of that on the floor. If those guys lock in defensively as freshmen, they're hopefully going to follow suit with the rest of the team. I think just the complete game aspect that you're speaking to, Eb, is seeing them give the same tenacity effort on defense is what we know they're capable offensively, which is putting up 100-plus points.
And it's really fun because I think there was a combination in this game that was like Malik Thomas, Darius Acuff, Carter Knox, and I want to say, Malik Ewan and TB maybe, and Arkansas had to go small at one point in this game. Maybe I'm botching someone here or there, but it's fun to see the different variations this team has because they are so deep, and Cal can throw different lineups, whether that's three big guys and TB, and you can almost go four big guys and TB and Carter Knox, Malik Ewan, Nick Pringle, and then you can go small. It's fun to see the different variations that Cal has for his Razorbacks.
Yeah, because that gives you a luxury if one lineup or one group is not playing well, that, okay, you can go small and try to counteract some of the size you'll go up against in the Southeastern Conference or a non-conference player. Maybe you're not getting enough rebounds to Cal's liking. They did last year.
Yeah.
Well, you can play some of those guys together. So there's a lot of elements to this basketball team that as the season progresses, we're going to find out. 8 players played in that game Monday night. I know he talked about Isaiah Sealy not getting Springdale's own in there. I think he's going to have an opportunity, but I think by the time we roll around to March Madness, you're going to see this lineup whittled down to 7 or 8 guys, and it'll be curious to see what that lineup looks like, and if the starting lineup that it is now, currently constituted, if that looks like early March.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how this team evolves over the next couple of months. Ty, before we let you go, I know last week we were talking about going to Indy and all of that. Have your expectations after seeing them play other teams, has it changed through these exhibition games?
I think you're having to pull yourself back. You mentioned like a couple different commentators, like John Rothstein, for example, who feels like that Arkansas is unfairly ranked and unfairly seated where they're on the pecking order of the SEC. So many Razorback fans have watched those 2 exhibition games and say, we deserve to be higher.
Yeah.
Well, as you pointed out, Kansas, Purdue, some of the other games that you played in recent memory, that you looked really good. They are still exhibition games. Teams are not going to look like they are in October versus versus March. So there's a lot to learn. Injuries, unfortunately, play a role in every other sport, just like they do this one. So we'll see where this team's health is at this point. But funny enough, I actually got a text from a friend that lives in Indy. He said, I hope to see you in April. Lucas Oil is a place that Arkansas's been. They went in 2021 when under COVID. You had everything housed there. You got a chance to play where Butler plays in Hinkle Fieldhouse, in Bankers Life, as it was called, when the Pacers play. So Arkansas fans, the ones that went, got a chance to see what Indianapolis was like, including St. Elmo's with the cocktail sauce. So I think a lot of Arkansas fans would love to experience that cocktail sauce for the first time.
As somebody who has lived in Indiana 4 years before coming out here, going to Bloomington, I've done all of that. It's amazing. Indiana is such a great place. Indianapolis is awesome, and that shrimp sauce, oh man, that gets you going. St. Elmo's is awesome. One of the best steakhouses in the Midwest.
There's so many cool bars. Like what we made our home at Wild Beaver Saloon, and there's a few. You're gonna have to help me on this because I know they have locations in Bloomington. There's a few other places right around, like in different, like right around campus and other spots. It is really an unbelievable city, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see the Hogs there in November, but a long way in November, in March, April. I don't know. What day is it right now? We're so fingers are crossed.
One day from Halloween.
Exactly. Let's focus on Halloween first. Arkansas takes on Mississippi State in football. Ty, anything else we missed before we wrap up?
I think we were talking about the soccer team earlier. Just how about what Colby Hale, once again, SEC Coach of the Year, what they've established. You think about the other sports that don't get the notoriety on this campus with Courtney Dival's softball program, the golf teams, both Coach Taylor and Brad McMakin. I mean, there's so much positive energy within the athletic department. You just wish it would affect football a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully it does, and you never know. The next coach might take a thing or two from some of these other coaches. Well, for Hog Roundup, big thanks to Kennedy Ball. For Ty Richardson, I'm Evan Camico. That's going to do it for our episode this week. We'll see you back here next week.